Hello world, it's Bird O' Prey 5 Qapla. Welcome to my review of Star Trek Lower Decks, Episode 2, Envoys. Before we get into spoilers, this episode had better pacing than the first. It didn't feel rushed at all. Clocking in at just under 25.5 minutes including credits and next week preview, it was written well for the time it had. As for the humor, I would say it improved. While the first episode elicited a couple of chuckles, this episode had at least two genuine laugh-out-loud moments for me. It was a welcome surprise. Unfortunately, it wasn't all improvements. Ensign Mariner is even worse in this episode than she was in the first. Even more of an know-it-all, the hero of every scene she is in, and loved by everyone she meets. She reminds me of someone whom. If I could only put my finger on it. Overall, while I do think this was a better episode than last week, the real tragedy is it could have been great had Ensign Mariner been written differently or not been used at all. Last week I gave this a 5 of 10, and this week I give it a minor improvement of a 5.25 of 10. This could easily have been a 6 or even 7 if Mariner wasn't always the hero and Boimler wasn't always the fool. With that, it's time to call for spoiler alerts and get to the detailed review. Unlike the first episode, the opening zinger is quite funny this time and involves a mysterious energy being who appears on the ship ready to cause havoc and destruction until Ensign Mariner shoves him into a container she happened to have and negotiates with it for a new tricorder and power cell. Delivery of these goods cause it to shrink to a fraction of its original size. Mariner lets it go and it ends up absorbing itself into the captain. Like the first episode, however, this zinger has nothing to do with the rest of the episode. The real story doesn't begin until after the credits. And I still love those credits best since Enterprise, maybe Voyager. The A story opens with Boimler coming into what I am guessing is the main lower decks cargo area. Tendi and Mariner were laughing, watching a video of some Vice Admiral falling off a stage on a pad, though we don't get to see the video. Boimler walks in to brag about his latest assignment. We get the first mention of the Enterprise when Thing bring up an Ensign Castro who we're told served aboard the Enterprise briefly. Boimler will be transporting a Klingon, whom we are told is famous, named Qo'nos to a planet named Tilgana IV. We've never heard of nor seen this planet or Klingon in any other Trek. Mariner and Boimler walk off just before Ensign Rutherford crawls out of a nearby Jeffries tube near Ensign Tendi. He is enthusiastic to tell her he just spent a solid week aligning over 100 EPS conduits, and he tells her he has a few more days to go to align them. This is the start of the far better B-plot. Tendi reminds Rutherford he promised to watch the Trivoli pulsar with her, and he gets a worried look. Realizing he did indeed make that promise and insisting Starfleet doesn't break their word, he says he'll simply quit engineering and change divisions to make time to watch it with her. I thought it was meant as a joke, but Tendi takes it seriously and just looks so happy he's making time for her. He realizes he may have got himself into even more trouble. I guess a personal day isn't an option. Next we see Boimler in full dress uniform carrying a huge backpack heading to the Yosemite in the shuttle bay. He tries to make conversation with two more senior techs working on the shuttle, but they want nothing to do with him. As he boards the shuttle, he is horrified to see Ensign Mariner at the controls waiting. Not only has she made a mess, not only did she get herself assigned to his mission, she replaced him as the pilot, so Boimler is officially the co-pilot. As it turns out though, he will be doing all the flying. We go back to Rutherford, who is in engineering. The chief engineer is giving Rutherford nothing but praise and wishes he had more people like Rutherford. This makes it even more difficult for Rutherford to ask for a transfer, but he does. They play it like the chief engineer is going to get all angry, but instead he's genuinely happy for Rutherford. In fact, everyone cheers for him and his decision to try different departments. Back at the shuttle, Qo'nos comes and he is a large and imposing Klingon warrior figure. Boimler musters all the courage he has to even speak to the man when Mariner attacks Qo'nos out of nowhere. Boimler is shocked and appalled until it becomes clear Mariner and Qo'nos are old friends and she's just giving him a Klingon hello. Boimler is relegated to carrying Qo'nos' sword and flying the shuttle, while Qo'nos is more interested in updating Mariner on something else.
I must update you on my many sexual conquests, Mariner.
What, both of them?
This was one of the laugh-out-loud moments. On their way to the planet, Qo'nos and Mariner drink and sing Klingon songs. Qo'nos demands Boimler land in the little Qo'nos district because he wants Ga. By the time they land, the shuttle is a mess and Qo'nos is passed out cold, drunk. Mariner and Boimler step out of the shuttle and mention they'll need to get the shuttle washed because of the smell of the Klingon district. Before they can get Qo'nos Aractogeno to wake him up, he steals the shuttle and drunkenly flies it away. Mariner comments that this has happened before, many times. In fact, Mariner admits Qo'nos steals a lot of things. Boimler is angry and upset, but Mariner says they simply need to beam up and remote control the shuttle back. Boimler points out, however, this world has an ion shield which blocks communications and transporters, and after Mariner tries to reach the ship via communicator, she has the one and only look of worry, as she didn't expect this would be an issue. Boimler starts speed walking away, to which Mariner calls him out. She says she's going the same speed as him, just normal walking. Boimler says that the Section 31 guys walk like this to conserve energy, as it cuts to a commercial break. At this point in history, I would not expect an ensign to know about Section 31, not if it was still as it was during Deep Space Nine. It is possible, however, that after the Dominion War Bashir or others chose to go public with the existence of Section 31. Disappointing if true. Boimler and Mariner track Qo'nos through the different districts of the planet. A woman running a Klingon restaurant tells them he is headed north, but not before threatening Boimler with a mek'leth. While walking through the district, we see Kaylons, only seen once before in TNG. Not to be confused with Kaylons from the Orville. The Prior are a humanoid race that kills themselves at age 60. The latter are badass robots with a kill-all-humans attitude. Bender would be proud of them. Boimler bumps into a big blue monster-looking alien and then makes things worse when he tries to apologize in the alien's native language. Mariner rescues him by stealing the alien's wallet, which is just a small bag. Back to the Better Be plot, we see Rutherford now in command. Red. First Officer Ransom is walking Rutherford into the holodeck to run some command simulations. They start with a level 43 test. Rutherford takes the captain's chair, and after ordering the ship to maintain course, all hell breaks loose. Rutherford is paralyzed with fear and surprise as the simulation ends, announcing a death toll of 105%. Rutherford is dumbfounded and gets no answer to how he could have lost more than 100% of the crew. This was another laugh out loud moment for me. Commander Ransom gives him advice that in a situation like that, he may want to try something called the Janeway Protocol. Rather than give up on Rutherford, though, here he sets the simulation to a much lower difficulty of level 4. This time when Rutherford takes the command, he's told a small asteroid is slowly headed toward the ship, and the navigator asks if they should move to avoid it. Rutherford still feels like he is under too much pressure and calls for the Janeway Protocol. Apparently, that involved venting the entire kindergarten class into space, followed by the pre-K as well. All the ship's children have been ejected into space, reports the comm officer, and there's even a graphic showing the children floating out of the ship. Then the asteroid hits, and as they are all about to die again, Ransom freezes the program to tell Rutherford in all the thousands of simulations he's run, this is literally the first time he saw this happen.
Let's try another one, on a ship with even more children!
Back on the planet, Boimler and Mariner are walking into Little Rise. Mariner leaves Boimler by a fountain for a minute when an attractive woman sits next to Boimler and says she can read his thoughts. She knows he wants Jamaharan. He begins blushing as she goes to kiss him. He's about to kiss her when Mariner turns a fire hose on them both. As it turns out, the woman was in fact an Anabij, which is another new alien introduced in this episode. The beautiful face opens up to a lizard-like thing, and Mariner says it just wants to implant its eggs in Boimler's throat. The alien shows its true self, but says she knows Boimler still wants her. She can hear his nasty boy thoughts. She yells to the crowd that gathered that Boimler wants Jamaharan until Mariner douses her with the hose again. Boimler admits he never even heard of an Anabij before and asks how Mariner knew about them. She gives a list of reasons, but includes the fact she even dated one once, just to get her mom upset. Mariner starts running, and Boimler follows as she says they aren't far from Qo'nos, and they have to hurry before it gets too late. Back on the ship, Rutherford is now in blue and working in sickbay with Dr. Tana and Tendi. The doctor is impressed with his skill on working on the inside of a person, to which Rutherford credits it's not that much different than engineering. However, when he is called upon to talk to a patient to keep him calm, Rutherford completely loses it, eventually asking the patient how it's even possible he's alive after the injuries he took. The doctor has no choice but to throw Rutherford out of sickbay and says he might as well join security since he won't cut it with no bedside manner. So next we see Rutherford back in gold, but now with the security chief, Lieutenant Shaxs. Shaxs puts him in a ring and tells the computer to load the Smorgasbord simulation. All of a sudden Rutherford is surrounded by a dozen Borg. Rutherford says he doesn't know how to fight, but wonders if his Vulcan implant has a fighting feature. Sure enough, he presses something on the side of his head, and his implant takes over and makes him a fighting machine. He quickly kills all 12 Borg. Shaxs is amazed and says he created the program so his officers could learn how to deal with defeat. No one was intended to pass it. He calls Rutherford a natural-born warrior. On the planet, Boimler and Mariner are finally in the Andorian district. Mariner woman-splains to Boimler about the Andorians, who tells her he knows all about them as they were a founding member of the Federation. They come across an Andorian bar where an elderly Andorian is begging for mercy, claiming his bones hurt as a younger man attacks him. Before asking any questions, Boimler stuns the man who appeared to be attacking the older man. The old man instantly turns into an alien and then turns into a little boy and laughs as he gets away out a window. An Andorian calls Boimler an idiot and saying it wasn't an old man, but a Vandorian and a thief. Vandorians were in a single episode of Star Trek, the animated series, and you might have known that if you were watching my Cinema Saturday on Sunday editions, where we have been going through Star Trek the animated series episodes. The Survivor, the 6th episode of the animated series, we covered just this past Sunday, August 9th. Link in the corner and description. Must give props for bringing back the Vandorian, and they are drawn the same. In the animated series, it was established the Vandorian homeworld was under quarantine as they were a naturally deceptive species. Anyway, the Andorians are pissed at Boimler and a full-on bar brawl ensues. Not having time to fight everyone, Mariner instead gets on the table and shoots her phaser in the air to get their attention, even though it's the noise of a gun that gets attention in those situations. The relative quietness of a phaser would hardly be noticed. Regardless, she does get their attention and offers to buy the next 5 rounds on her and brings out that wallet she stole from the alien earlier. The fight stops and everyone cheers for her. They even carry her away like a hero. Boimler, seeing Mariner carried away by a bar full of cheering aliens, finally breaks. He realizes he's done nothing but screw up and fail. He walks off. Mariner finds him a little later sitting in an alley. For some reason his pants were down as he was sitting on a box covered in blood, booze, and vomit, bruised and battered. Boimler admits Ensign Mariner, is better than him in every way, and she doesn't even study. He feels he is not Starfleet material. He throws away his badge and says when this mission is over, he's done. Mariner, to her credit, does pick up his badge before they move on. Before they go, Boimler says he's going to go study bugs on a far-off planet, die, get eaten, and a crew get his distress signal, and will have to come piece together what happened by his shaky logs, which is funny because that has been the setup for several Trek episodes of years past. Back to Rutherford. Shaxs introduces them to the rest of the security team, or his bear pack as he calls it. Shaxs calls Rutherford one of us, and as he explains how different security is than other departments, Rutherford sees an engineer crawling out a Jeffries tube. A lovely sparkling Jeffries tube, and Rutherford tells Shaxs his heart is in engineering and he requests permission to leave the bear pack. Just like when asking to leave engineering, it looks like everyone is going to be angry with him, but instead everyone is happy for him for knowing what he wants to do and where he wants to be. One last time back on the planet, Mariner is helping Boimler walk. It's getting late and Mariner says they need a shortcut. Just then a Ferengi jumps out from behind a tree and offers to take them to his shuttle and points into a dark cave, saying they just need to follow him. Mariner says okay, but Boimler raises the alarm, saying they can't trust Ferengi. They are the least trustful race in the galaxy. Which seems a bit of an exaggeration, especially as there should be at least one Ferengi Starfleet officer at this time. But Mariner claims the alien isn't a Ferengi at all but a Bolian, a mistake very out of character for her. Boimler says the alien couldn't be more Ferengi, the big ears, the beady eyes, the greedy thing they do with their hands. Mariner goes to walk with the Ferengi when Boimler challenges the Ferengi to say what his landing code is. Boimler explains anyone who actually has a shuttle would have to have a landing code to have landed on the planet. The Ferengi looks around and says he has the code right here, but instead pulls out a knife and demands all their profit. Boimler shoots the knife out of the Ferengi hands, and the Ferengi runs away as Boimler literally shoos it away like you might a raccoon or other small unwanted animal. Mariner concedes Boimler might have been right, and Boimler totally seizes on the rare opportunity to toot his own horn at Mariner's expense. He then spots the shuttle in the distance. They get to it and it's full of parking tickets. Mariner knocks them all to the floor. Boimler asks if that is legal, and Mariner asks what can they do, send her a bill in space? As they go to the back of the shuttle, they see Corin is again collapsed drunk in the back. They decide to pull him out and drop him in front of the Federation embassy before flying away. At the embassy, a Tasha Yar-looking woman comes to the door to find General Corin flat on the floor, demanding something before vomiting on himself. She presses her communicator to alert the Cerritos that the general arrived just in time. He then starts tugging on her leg and tells her to fetch his drinking horn, he needs ale. To which she responds, "Are you bleeping kidding me?" The F-bomb got bleeped, but it was there. It did nothing to further the scene and its use is simply gratuitous, bleeped or not. I hope they don't find a way to put it in every episode. While flying back to the ship, Mariner gives Boimler back his comm badge he had thrown away earlier and asks if Boimler would keep her mistaking the Ferengi for a Bolian to himself. He says of course that it wouldn't leave the shuttle, but seconds later they show Boimler in the bar making fun of the entire thing and proclaiming how his sound thinking saved the mission because Mariner didn't know what a Ferengi looked like. Mariner, looking upset, leaves the bar, but not before smiling as she goes out the door. If you didn't know it already, you know it now. She planned it all along. But first we see Rutherford confessing to Tendi he tried leaving engineering, but he can't, he just won't be able to watch the pulsar with her. She is extremely understanding and says she can just watch it with him on her pad. Rutherford had no idea that was possible. She says no big deal. Tendi jokingly says it's not like Rutherford was trying all those jobs just to hang with her and laughs it off. And in the final scene we see Mariner in her bunk. She makes a call to the Ferengi who she met on the planet. As it turns out, of course, they are old friends and talk as such. His name is Qimp and Mariner says he did perfect. They laugh at him acting like a stereotypical Ferengi, calling people humans and all, but he looks like a refined Ferengi, even wearing a monocle, and telling Mariner he and his wife are taking a weekend vacation on Risa. The camera pans to the window at the rear of the ship where the pulsar is, which then transitions to Tendi's pad. She is back to back with Rutherford as she looks as the pulsar and he looks at some kind of EPS junction or the like in the Jeffries tube and they both amazed at the beauty of what they are each gazing at. End of episode. So like I said earlier, there were several times I laughed out loud and more chuckles than the first episode. Unfortunately, Mariner crosses the line to straight up Mary Sue, greatly detracting from the episode's humor and otherwise decent story. 2 episodes down, but the third will confirm in my opinion if Mariner is going to be a borderline character or if she will be getting worse as the series continues. She is who will ultimately make or break this series, and after 2 episodes it's not looking good. It's a real shame as Tendi, Rutherford, and Boimler are quality ensigns. Ransom, Dr. Tana, and Security Chief Shaxs are capable officers who showed many of Starfleet's best qualities in this episode. With a little change in the writing, Star Trek Lower Decks could go from being the best of the worst to being a decent series in its own right, but it remains to be seen if we'll ever live up to that potential. I hope you enjoyed the review. What did you think of the artificial voice? Let me know in the comments, please. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Ring that bell icon for notifications. Check out birdoprey5.com for all your Bird O Prey 5 needs. Qapla all and Bird out.